Hello everyone and welcome back to Meeple Leaf Reviews. I'm your host Jeffrey.
And I am Jacob.
And today we're doing another before and after where we take a look at our game before our first play and immediately after, giving you our
expectations of the game before we've ever played it, followed by our first impressions after our first game. What kind of, did it meet our expectations or not?
Right. And today that game is going to be Great Western Trail.
Right.
I picked this one up in Essen. Yeah. The reason I did so was because of the designer.
Okay.
Alexander Pfister, he did Mombasa, Isle of Skye. So I like those games. I really like Mombasa a lot. So I was like, he's coming out with a new game. It's also coming out from Stronghold, which a lot of their games that came out this year at Essen I was hyped up for. So I was like, I need to pick this one up.
Cool.
So that's why it's here at the table.
Right. And I hadn't really paid much attention. I hadn't been following. We had a little bit of a hiatus from board games. At least I have. I hadn't been following games for about a month and a half or so. So a lot of these games that we're going to be covering are, I'm not familiar with it. So I didn't really know anything about it until Jeffrey just explained it to me.
Yeah, so it's kind of a deck building. You're building up your player board by removing discs that give you different bonuses. Mm-hmm. It also has this where you're building buildings along this route. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Kalis in that way.
Haven't played it.
So there's a lot of different mechanisms thrown in here, and I'm actually really excited to give this one a play. My expectations going into this one are I'm expecting it to be pretty good.
Right. I have some expectations. I think the early game is going to feel fairly bland.
Right.
And you're just going to be kind of going through the motions because the board is quite barren in the beginning of the game. And then as you're adding new tiles and building it up, you're going to have a lot more choices.
Right.
But I think early game, I'm just going to be kind of like la 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 la, doing my own thing, whatever. And then late game, the strategy is going to kick in, and I'm going to be like, okay, now I need to figure out what actions I'm going to take, how to move across this map, hitting the points that I want to hit.
I'm also expecting that it's going to be a bit of an efficiency engine building thing. The person who's going to get their engine going efficiently faster, because the game kind of ticks by as more people visit Kansas City. So as you get towards the end of the track. So you want to be able to build a deck that's delivering high value cattle quicker, then you're going to be turning over the end of the game. So if you're doing that faster, you're not giving your opponent enough time to build up their deck and do it as efficiently. So I think it's almost a little bit of a race. There's also different stations where the first person who visits those is going to get a bonus. So you want to be the first to get those. And there's a whole bunch of, you're getting actions everywhere, it seems. Yeah. When you play objective cards that you can score at the end of the game, you're going to get immediate action. When you land on the buildings like have, 1 to like maybe even 3 or 4 actions on the tile themselves. So there's going to be lots of actions coming. And I think it's going to be really interesting engine building efficiency style game.
Sure. One concern that I kind of have with the game, and we'll see what happens with this, is I'm wondering if the game is going to drag near the end because, as I mentioned, the board is pretty barren in the beginning, so you're going to be whipping through, and turns are just going to go bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
You're going to go through the first maybe 4 rounds quite quickly, but then the board's going to fill up, and it's going to take a lot more turns to get through a round.
Right.
So is the last, 2-3 rounds of the game, is that going to drag? I'm not sure.
So when you're referring to rounds, because I just taught this to you, like the game plays just one action after the other. It just keeps going around. So there is no rounds per se. Right. It's just every
time you hit Kansas City, it's a time marker.
Yeah, for yourself.
Right.
And then you add more people to the job market, and then that's the timer for the game. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the first rounds you're going to be hitting Kansas City very quickly, over and over again. But as more buildings get out, you're going to be hitting it less frequently.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if the game drags or not.
Right. So that's my expectations for Great Western Trail.
Yeah.
Let's get it to the table, and then we'll come back and tell you what we think.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back, everyone. We just finished our first play of Great Western Trail.
Yes.
So, background into our first play, we played 2-player.
Yep.
And the first game took us about an hour and 40 minutes.
Right.
That's including the in-game scoring, which took about 4 minutes in and of itself.
Yeah, it's about 2 minutes per player.
Yeah.
There's several phases to go through with scoring.
Yeah. So, what's your general overall first impression?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I had a good time. I felt like I had lots of choices in this first gameplay.
Yeah.
But the game also felt to me a lot like Russian Railroads.
Okay.
And if you remember our first couple plays of Russian Railroads, we were just like, oh man, there's so much going on, so many choices. And then after about our 3rd to 5th play, we were like, oh, this is very linear.
Right.
Very straightforward, and you don't actually have too many choices. You're all following the same path, and then it's just deviating slightly here and there, weaving back and forth. I think that might be a similar thing in this game.
I can see that certainly, because really the end goal is you want to get to Kansas City with a lot of high value different cards.
Right.
Now, how you go about doing that, you could go, I want to get a lot of cowboys, so I make the cattle cards cheaper, or I can focus on getting money so that I don't need as many cattle people, so I can just pay more money to get the cattle cards that I need.
Sure.
Or, maybe I want to move my train along the track so it's cheaper for me to deliver to those higher value cities. Right. Or maybe I want to get money somewhere else so I can offset those costs so I don't need to send my train. So I think there's a couple different routes that you can go, but I don't think maybe there's an infinite number of strategies that you can employ.
Exactly.
I think because just overall the goal is the same for everyone, and it's going to be the same every game. You're going to be doing that now. There's going to be side goals like objective cards. The buildings have 2 sides, so maybe how you go about doing the different things can be different each game.
Sure.
But I do see your point there.
Right.
For that.
Now, we had also anticipated, or I had anticipated, that the beginning of the game would be quite speedy, because there's less action spaces to go to, and then the end of the game would really kind of bog down because there would be so many options to go to. I didn't really see that at all.
No.
I was actually quite surprised at how slow the first couple rounds went.
Yeah, if anything, it was the complete opposite. The first rounds were the slower ones because I was stopping off at every single building, neutral building, taking the action there, trying to get my engine kick-started, whereas at the end of the game, I was much more focused.
Exactly.
So I was stopping at less spaces, so I was, and I could move further.
Right.
So I was actually moving through the trail in like maybe 3 moves rather than in six moves.
Yeah. And a lot of your turns are based on what you have in your hand as well, because the actions on these are, if you have this particular cattle, you can discard it from your hand for money. Yep. Or you can do this action with it. And so you're always looking, okay, well, I have this combination of cards. Maybe I should stop here because it's going to be helpful for me to get them out of my hand to build up a better hand for getting to Kansas City.
That was one of the things that I found one of the most enjoyable things about the game is as you're traveling along this trail, not only are you taking actions and trying to build up some sort of engine or deck or your train stations or what have you, but you're also trying to selectively call your hand so that by the time you get to the end of the trail, you're going to get the most. So you'd be like, oh, well, I could deliver this round, or I could go take this action that'll let me get this out of my hand, or get this out of my deck even, which I really took advantage of, getting those low value cards out of my deck. So that building your hand as you go and trying to take advantage of different actions so you can actually discard cards out of your hand to draw hopefully higher value ones. I really liked that part of the game.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
So one of the things that I said initially was about efficiency. I definitely think it's about efficiency.
Yeah.
You wanna be getting more money so that you can do more actions, buy more people, buy more cattle, deliver further along the route, and the quicker you're going to be able to do that, the quicker you're going to be more focused and move through that trail quicker, and then you're going to start triggering the end of the game timer more and more quickly.
Yeah.
So you want to be efficient in this game for sure.
Exactly.
The other thing too with all the actions, I found another thing that I liked about the game was the comboing of actions together. I would like go to a building, take an action, hire a guy that would cover over an action, which would allow me to then, maybe discard a card from my hand, or going to somewhere else and putting down a token, which would give me one of those station tiles, which would give me another action. So there is some comboing nature, and I love games where you can try and build combos.
Yeah, and my combos that I tried to work with were the buildings, and I had multiple buildings in a row where I'd land on one and I'd take an action, and then it would move me to the next one, which would allow me to take another action, which would move me to the next one to take another action.
Yeah.
And that was my system that I tried to use. It didn't work out as well as I wanted, but...
One thing I found didn't come into a huge amount of play in a 2-player game, but I definitely would see more of in a 3 or 4-player game, was the whole having to pay other people for the hands on the buildings.
Yeah.
Because you built quite a few, but not very many of them had hands. And then I built only a very few buildings that didn't have any. So there was like twice that you had to pay money, because I built one building that had a hand. And that the only reason I built it was because it had a hand to stick it on a part of the track that I knew you wanted to go down.
Yeah.
So there is some of that, and I think in a higher player count game, you would get more of that interaction of where you're placing the buildings.
Yeah, because there aren't more in a larger player count game. There aren't more sections to place buildings. The same number and the same route is taken in both aspects of the game. So yeah, it would definitely have a larger effect in a 4-player game.
Yeah. Also, this is kind of I've already heard this compared to like a point salad style of game. There's a lot of ways to score. I think there's 11 different categories, but I don't feel like during the game I'm doing things to gain the points. I'm just doing things to build my deck. Like I want to gain cattle cards.
Yeah.
But at the end of the game, they're also worth points. So I'm getting points for the things that I wanted to do anyways, rather than just doing things to get points, which I think is a little bit of a distinction for a point salad game. In a point salad game, I'm just going to do something to gain those points, whereas in this game, I'm doing something to build my engine, but they're also worth points.
Sure. I would say also, because of the fact that you're tallying points at the end of the game, it doesn't feel like it as much either.
Right, exactly.
Whereas if you're gaining, I take this action, which gives me this many points, let's move my marker, and now I do this, and it gives me points in this.
Yeah, so I don't, it doesn't feel like a point salad game to me.
No, I didn't get that impression either.
Yeah. So I actually really, really liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I thought it was a pretty decent game.
I think I can get a few plays out of this for sure. I think, I'll keep an eye on that. How much replayability is going to be there after I've played it some more times to see. But I can see quite a few enjoyable plays coming out of this game for sure.
Sure. Was there anything, before we end this, was there anything that you didn't like about the game? Anything that jumped out at you?
No, I mean I liked the building my board, taking the discs off to make myself get different actions or to move further. I went heavy for that higher hand count. First. I tried to get on black discs so I could get those off and get my hand limit up. I mean I liked everything about the game. There wasn't one thing I was like, you know what, I could do without this in this game. I think everything worked together well, at least for me.
There's only one thing that kind of jumped out at me, and that is the cattle that you're getting to build your hand so you can do your actions efficiently all have point values on them. I think they could have scrapped that and had no points on the cattle. Yeah. On top of that, the different types, there's like a number 4 brown cow, and like all the cows that are number 4 are all brown, except they all have different point values on them, ranging from 1 to 5. I did not like at all.
I think the reason that they probably did that is, one, so that people wouldn't take their time getting to the cattle buy action.
Right.
So if you wanted to get those high point ones, you might have to jump over a space that you wanted to take to buy those up. Because the display doesn't get refreshed very often. Yeah. And you have to spend, use one of your own cowboys to put more into it there. So I think that might be one reason. Also, the other reason is probably because you can only score one of each type of card once you get to Kansas City, there's no point once you get those high value cards to buy any more. So then your cowboys basically become a little bit useless. So I think they put the points on there so it's worth actually buying more towards the end of the game.
Right.
So that's my thoughts on it, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand, like, okay, they have points on them, they're worth something, that's fine, but I don't like the fact that they have different value points, because the fact that the cattle bar does not refresh until you hit a certain point, that's like a timer on the cattle itself.
Yeah.
Like you're racing to get there because people are buying them up and it's just limited supply.
Yeah.
So I don't think it needs different select values.
Right.
But that's my personal opinion.
All right. Well, that's Great Western Trail. If that sounded interesting to you, check it out. And always don't like or subscribe. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us out a lot.
You can also follow us on Twitter at MeepleLeaf, and you can also go to Board Game Links and give us some hearts so more people can find us.
All right. See you guys next time.
Take care.